I find this sad. A great 19th century brick building, the Switzer's Licorice Building, falling down. They say it can't be repaired.
I find it sad because my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather all made licorice here, and when I was a kid, I practically grew up in this factory. Still remember the way it smells.
Well, I remember growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and enjoying Switzer licorice, right next to the Eads Bridge, which happens to be one of the great landmarks of our country, designed and built by James Buchanan Eads, who wasn't even an engineer. And underneath that archway, a young, penniless W.C. Handy was inspired to write the song St. Louis Blues, which became one of the most recorded songs of the 20th century.
Our final excursion tonight takes us through the industrial area north of downtown. You might think that's off the beaten path, but that hasn't been true for quite some time. There is running between downtown and the Chain of Rocks Bridge a paved bicycle trail about 10 miles long, weaving in and out of the floodgates, over and on top of the levee, and it is filled with sights and sounds and, yes, the occasional odd smell that you can't find anywhere else. But while this is not the picture postcard view of St. Louis, it may become the photo snapped by locals and tourists alike, because soon there's going to be a trail unlike any other in the area. In fact, one of the few of its kind in the world.
You know, I think this will be a place that people will go to, a destination. People will really want to get up here.
David Fisher is director of the Great Rivers Greenway District, and this is one of their big projects. The district was created by voters who approved a 1/10 cent sales tax to develop a system of linear parks along the region's rivers. And bike paths are a big part of what they're doing. This is one of their biggest projects. The district is spending millions of dollars to turn this old electric rail trestle into a bike and pedestrian pathway. It will break off from the riverfront bike trail at Branch Street and rise up to give a great view of working St. Louis. Maybe you've heard this. People would say, why would you want to put a bike trail through an area that looks like this? That's just so industrial and in some ways dirty.
This is what the city's all about. And this is what we're trying to do, is interpret really what the city's all about. The reason the city was founded here was the river. The reason the commerce and industry is here is because it was river transportation. The guy recycling cars down here, the people are recycling aluminum here, the warehouse, the storage. It's phenomenal. Story to be told.
Yeah. I think if you're taking little kids on the bike trail, I don't think you have to go any further than the scrap yards, because that stuff is just fascinating to watch.
Fascinating, yes it is.
At its end, the trestle will merge and become the outside lane of the newly rebuilt McKinley Bridge. The McKinley Bridge itself was a key part of the industrial development north of downtown. It was built in 1910 by the Illinois Traction, later the Illinois Terminal Railroad, to handle freight and its electric commuter lines. The electric cars used to come across the bridge and then turn off onto the trestle, eventually ending up underneath 12th Street downtown. The cars stopped running in 1958. The McKinley Bridge itself had to shut down in 2001 and has been undergoing massive repairs. As part of that, one of the outside lanes was set aside for pedestrians and cyclists. The Greenways District undertook this trestle project, and when it's done, you might wonder who's going to use it. Well, that's something they're not particularly worried about. Thousands of people are already using the many existing bike trails in the region, out on their own or in group rides. You'll find this kind of scene somewhere in the area just about every Saturday, spring to fall. The organization TrailNet organizes these rides and lays out routes of varying distances.
I'm going to try the 33-miler today.
We'll either do the 35 or the 50. We sort of decide about 25 or 30 miles into it whether or not we got it left in us.
On this particular morning, they were all starting out from the Missouri side of the Chain of Rocks Bridge. The conversion of this old Route 66 bridge for use by pedestrians and cyclists was one of the first big projects by TrailNet and Greenways. And now it really does serve as a bridge, joining the Missouri bike trails to an extensive system of paved off-road bikeways that run throughout Madison County and beyond.
So it's really nice that we have these connections, and there'll be future connections when they get the McKinley Bridge done. And with EADS having access for pedestrians and bicyclists, people can make some loop routes between the states.
I think this is only going to get bigger.
I do too. I do too. I think we're onto a good thing.
The new elevated trestle bikeway has the potential to be as popular and versatile as the Chain of Rocks Bridge. It's wide enough for events, there's plenty of room to dress it up with banners and plantings, and they say there are only 2 others like it, one in New York, one in Paris. So this is not your run-of-the-mill construction project.
There's some unique things to deal with it being an old bridge that we had to retrofit and make repairs to, and then try to figure out how to fit a bridge deck on here. There was just a lot of things we had never dealt with before and had to come up with, to think a lot about what we might deal with that. Like up in the curved portion of the bridge, the railroad tracks were actually angled, and so we had to try to find a way to get a flat bike path over that.
But it was built to handle trains and freight, so I guess it's pretty strong.
So yeah, it's a very strong bridge. It didn't take much to handle just some people and bikes on it.
The McKinley Bridge is due to reopen in the fall, but the plan is to give cyclists a sneak preview in August, allowing them onto the bike lane the evening before the midnight ramble. And after all this opens up, work will continue on the Illinois side on trails up and down the Mississippi.
Yeah, that's the vision, is to long-term have these parallel systems on both sides of the river, so you can do as much or as little as you want and have enough crossings that you can get back and forth across the river.
The bike trails will give you perspectives of St. Louis that it's hard to get any other way, and not just the pretty views of downtown, because there wouldn't be all of that if it weren't for all of this.
Charlie, you weren't actually raised in St. Louis, but from your work at KMOX and the 2 books you wrote, you seem to have become the city's #1 booster. How did that happen?
Well, I'm a big fan of history. I like history books, movies about history, and when you take a look at the history of St. Louis, you see a lot of people and a lot of events that shaped the course of American history. I find it fascinating. I like it more than a Clancy novel.